My name's Arkella Irving. I work for Department of Environment, Water and Natural Resources, and the project I'm working on is the Adelaide International Bird Sanctuary. My background is marine science, and then I've moved into policy, and then I've kind of landed in this funny role around community engagement, but also planning. And the reason I've landed in that space is because working on projects for years on the ground, getting very frustrated with the not having an enabling policy behind that, going and influencing the policy behind that, and then realising it's really about the people that are going to make the policy work. So if we can understand what the people need and people want, including people that are working in my workplace and others, then we're really going to create the policies and the outcomes and projects that are going to be really worthwhile for people. So I'm quite driven by that, quite driven by making a difference, and I guess it's a good time for me in the department. They let me back in after escaping for a little while, and they've given me another job, and the politics is right for me at the moment with the current Premier and Minister. So lucky me, I get to have a bit of fun with this work. So I'll be talking to you about collective impact, the power of story, and using data to drive systemic change. So who knows about the Bird Sanctuary? I'm going to wake people up here. I can see a few friends of, starter-uppers and other people around the place, which is great. Part of our job is to increase awareness about it. There's this amazing story about the Bird Sanctuary. The Bird Sanctuary starts around St Kilda, a bit lower than that actually, and heads all the way up 60 kilometres of coastline up to Port Parham. It's going to be one of the biggest coastal reserves in the state, which is super exciting. And it has all these other great benefits, like it allows climate change adaptation through creating a buffer to people and houses and such like. It hopefully creates some interesting innovative work around blue carbon. It's a part of an election commitment between Minister Hunter and Premier Weatherill. But most importantly, I think that captures the minds and hearts of people is it's one of the most significant sites for migratory birds that fly along the East Asian Australasian Flyway, which is one of the 4 global flyways and apparently one of the most important flyways because the highest number of birds travel that flyway, and it's the longest flyway in distance. So for those of you interested in that story, I encourage you to jump online and check it out. The basic summary of that story is that a lot of these birds spend about 6 or so weeks up in the Arctic breeding. They fly through about 22 countries on average, between 7,000 and 10,000 kilometres a day they fly, stopping off every now and again for a bit of a recharge. And then they rock up on Adelaide shores, this St Kilda kind of stretch of coast up to Port Parham, and it's, for the birds, one of the best sites for them in the world because they spend 6 months of their year here, longer than anywhere else they spend. But for many of the locals and those that know the area, it's probably considered one of the biggest wastelands or dump sites. So we've got an extreme contrast in establishing what we know as a beautiful, amazing bird sanctuary, and then bringing community along with us that have other problems on their hands, like surviving and getting a job and eating and other things. So it's a really complex problem to solve. I think it's perhaps, people say to me, what an easy project to run, but it's not actually, because if we're really going to make a difference in this sanctuary being of benefit to the locals of South Australia and the people that live around that area, then we've got quite a lot of complexity to work through to make that happen. So for me, quite exciting because I like that stuff. Buzzword, I know it's being bandied around and lots of people use it without really knowing what they're doing, and I can be called one of them if you like. But we worked with a bunch of people to start with asking the question, what is possible here? What can we do with this creation of the bird sanctuary? What do we think needs to be in place? What's the problem before we even ask what the solution is? So that led to a vision that was created that said, let's protect birds, but let's also create opportunities for local and visiting people. So the engagement approach behind it, which is what we've designed along the way, is really to say that we believe that communities connecting with nature strengthens those communities and enhances the environment. So step 1, I'm going to take you through some of the processes over the last year. I've been in the job for about a year, in what we've discovered, or what I've discovered, unravelled and then rebuilt, and what that process has been like. So first of all, it's a complex space geographically. It's got lots of different uses happening across the area. Lots of people don't understand it. Lots of people think that that area is, well, it is actually quite unsafe. One of the main laughed at activities of the area is car burning. Cars get stolen, taken down there, burned. So people say if you go down there for bird watching, just be careful where you leave your car. It's true. And on the other hand, we've got the Minister announcing this amazing bird sanctuary. It's going to bring in all these tourism dollars and people are going to go all over the world and come and check out this bird sanctuary and spend all this money here, and what a great thing it is for South Australia's economy. But hey, where do we send them? And within a month of working on the job, people were saying to me, where's the go-to place for the bird sanctuary? Where do we send, what do you say on the website? It's this great thing, all these birds come, but where do you go? So quite complex. On top of that, over 40 years of white man's history of investigating the area, Birds SA have so much data. Everyone's got data about this place, but no one's actually pulled it together to make a story and understand what the problem is and how we're going to fix it. So, something I also like to do, what framework can we apply to this? It's a complex problem. There's all these people involved and competition within my own agency about who gets a say, and everyone wants to be involved and everyone's the expert, but no one's actually asking questions. People are just saying what the answers are, but no one really knows what the answers are. Who's asking the right questions? What is the right question? What framework is going to get us from this complexity of all these different people that are interested in this space and all the different issues that these birds face, not only in our own funny little piece of geography down there, but also they've got to fly the globe. They're going through places like Yellow Sea and so many different countries where there's all these impacts on them and no room for them to stop anymore because of the land reclamation, they call it, which is kind of a funny word for it, but it's basically building stuff on coasts. What are we going to do to make sense of this? And how will I be able to do it as a government employee? Which is quite tricky. So one of the things that we've been looking at and we've been getting some permission for, and it's kind of working, is this model that's actually been born out of the social sector, and it's called collective impact. And basically they say if you have 5 elements of work going on in your project or initiative, it's pretty likely it'll succeed. And they don't say these are the exact steps or formula, they say these are kind of the things that you need to be in place. They seem pretty simple. Common agenda. So you've got to get everyone agreeing to what goal, what agenda is that everyone's going to sign up to. Now, all of those different people I've talked about, how would you get them in the room to decide on what they all agree needs to happen? Quite a lot of different people, quite a lot of different agendas. Shared measurement systems. What do we agree needs to be measured? Every Tom, Dick and Harry's out there collecting data about this place in all their different ways and formats and scales and reasons. Is anyone working together on that? Is anyone pulling all that together and saying how we're going to make sense of this place? Mutually reinforcing activities. How does one group going out doing some monitoring impact another group that wants to do something? How do we get those groups talking to each other so that we're all contributing to the same things that we think are going to really make a difference for these birds and for the local people? Continuous communication. Talking to people, keeping the messaging going, keeping the questions and the answers and the constant iterations of testing work and making sure they get a chance to have their say and bringing people in. If anyone falls asleep, I'm going to throw something at them. Is that all right? Just because I've got the graveyard shift, so you've got to keep me awake as well. And the last one is the backbone support organisation, which I thought would be super easy. That's just kind of making sure that everything's going on track, that there's people doing the work, that there's some money going towards organising meetings and there are things convened and someone's keeping an eye on stuff, someone's making brochures, someone's developing web. That's not actually that easy in government. And so we are currently providing, or my role is currently providing backbone support to all this work that I'm going to show you. But we're now at the place where we're saying, can we carry it? This is a very different way of operating for us. So why would we use collective impact? What's so good about it? It allows things to emerge. It allows us to find new information, adapt it and bring it in and reform the questions and what we're going to do and go back again. It also allows unforeseen opportunities to come about and new solutions, which when you're working in a complex problem, you need to allow that space for new things to come up. Because with complexity, you can't predict it. You don't know. As much as some of my executives would like me to do a timeline of all the various things that are going to happen and what the exact results are and who's going to be involved and how much it's going to cost, I don't know. But I know we've got a process of a framework. We're bringing people in, we're learning and we're relearning and we're testing. And there's some great stuff happening out of it that never would have happened if I'd mapped the project out to a T. This work allows previously unnoticed movement or resource from outside of the community, and it can be applied locally. So for me, that means we trust people to make decisions about their place, and we say, help us innovate and understand. It allows us to work together differently. At the beginning of this project, everyone said, this has been done before, this has all been done before, there's all these projects going on that have been running in this area, it's all been done before. A year down the track, we hold a workshop, and everyone's saying, this has never been done before, and bloody hell, it's hard. It also allows us to work in a strategy that's identified locally, it can be spread more widely, it allows this developmental evaluation, which in our language is adaptive management, and it uncovers newly changing relationships and potentially solutions out of that. It allows leaders within the community to be successful leaders in the collective impact initiative, and it allows that marriage of emergent solutions and intentional outcomes. So this is the kind of thinking behind what it is. So the top line is the backbone role and all the different groups we've convened, making decisions and coming up with ideas, and the bottom bit's us testing with people. So at the moment we're working on the common agendas. It's a year down the track. We've got 4 drafts. They've been through 6 iterations of different groups workshopping them, and they're getting better and better and better. And it's at the point now where if I counted the number of people that have shaped those common agendas, we're looking at 200-300 across all the councils, across all the different leadership groups, across those 4 council areas that impact the bird sanctuary. They've all bought into this now, and guess what they're all saying? Bloody hell, we need a sanctuary. So it just shows you, I guess, the impact that you can make. We could have gone out as a government and said, here's our policy, we're making a sanctuary. Who would have come on board? Who would have invested money? Who would have aligned their strategies? Probably not many. So the next step's about implementing the framework, designing the structures. We've got a leadership group called the Collective, who are the local leaders and advisors. We've got a data working group, who I could give a whole presentation on that in itself. I've just come from those guys, powerhouse of understanding and pulling together data and trying to make sense of what data's out there and how it all works together and how all the different bits of the puzzle are going to fit. We've started embedding the design. So building capacity across our staff and other organisations to carry this work forward beyond what we can do. And we've started designing the work of the future for those engaged. It's just some of the stuff that we're using to pull it all together. So we're using things like, what are our assumptions? If we say that we need to increase the health of shorebirds, what are we assuming? And what does that mean? And what indicator are we going to use to track it? So these are the 4 common agendas that we've come up with so far. As I said, create a sanctuary for shorebirds. We could have all guessed that that was going to happen, but hey, now all these people are saying they need it to happen. It's not just our mandate, it's theirs. They're also saying that to have a sanctuary for shorebirds, you really need to build the local economy, so the locals get the local jobs, that the sanctuary activities employ local people, that this thing becomes a part of the hearts and minds and jobs and opportunities for the local people that then will protect the area, and that's critical. Enhancing wellness of the local community. So what opportunities can we provide through the sanctuary, either direct participation or some other form of engagement, that they can directly receive wellness benefits from visiting the place? And this is quite well known in the healthy parks, healthy people type stuff, but we're just pushing it that bit further. And what's also really important is that we expand this conservation effort across the global flyway into all these other countries and excite them about being involved. And a lot of that is this telling a compelling story. My former presenter talked about collecting stories from people, and I can't give enough emphasis on encouraging people to collect stories and use stories, because story has the ability to unlock people's minds and hearts in ways that no other form of communication does. Collecting a story from someone about their connection to a place is the most powerful bit of communication you're ever going to get, and I encourage you all to incorporate that into your project work. And this is where we're at now. So the messy pie, moving into alignment, we're asking our partners and our councils, okay, we've got these 4 agendas. We're starting to develop some results. What is it that you want to see change under this agenda? And what are you going to do to contribute to that? What are you actually going to do? Because we're going to measure it together. And then we're going to gather momentum and scale up and go as far as we can across the globe. That's it. Thank you.